Thanks, Robert. And thanks to Red Cloud for putting this event on. I think it's very well suited for our size and our the size of the companies that they deal with is right, and I think we're just at the beginning here of maybe a bit of a comeback for the juniors. So Pacton is a well-positioned, high-grade gold explorer in the Red Lake region primarily, and we also are active in Western Australia looking for the high-grade sources of the gold that you've been hearing about, that's kind of spread about in the surface gravels out in the Western Pilbara. So I'll talk first about Red Lake. Our land position here is in yellow. You can see the town of Red Lake. We just kind of creep up on the southern edge of the town. We're within 2 kilometers of the main producing head frame at the Red Lake mine. And on our western edge, we're just south and kind of border the Madsen property, which Pure Gold is putting into production. That decision's been made. And to the south of us, of course, is what really turned up the heat here in Red Lake, which is the discovery of the new zones by Great Bear. So we had a core package kind of in the middle of Red Lake for a couple of years, and recently, basically, we've been able to finance by being in this area, so we've consolidated our land position quite a bit. So we are one of the largest landholders, and we're very, very central to the whole play. So geology-wise, really the big key here is that Great Bear broke the mold by finding substantial amounts of gold and high-grade gold in intermediate and felsic rocks, and on the contact of mafics with those rocks. So the old Red Lake model since the 1930s has been that you needed to be in the northern blue rocks, the Balmer assemblage, which is primarily mafic and ultramafic rocks. And they can't really argue with that. There's 20 million ounces of gold produced up in that sequence, but as a result, the southern part was neglected and has seen very, very little exploration except for a few sporadic shots here and there, but they were small. And until Great Bear made their discovery at the Dixie project, this sequence of rocks, the Confederation series, has been sadly neglected. So we start with a big land position, but very little exploration historically. This Boyden area here is kind of our first focus, and there is some historical trenches from the 1930s and 40s, and we've gone in and resampled some of these trenches and have basically seen visible gold, 126 gram per ton, up to in terms of sampling, and the right type of rocks. I mean, basically it's veining on contacts with mafic and intermediate volcanics. So, and in what we think is a big fault zone. So we have all the ingredients. And then we did a lot of high resolution magnetic work, a lot of new graphics now that we've produced. And basically when you combine the Great Bear area, there's this northwest trending fault. And this line is quite clear, it just goes right up through here. There's kind of a corridor that we're focusing on. And within that corridor, extending up from Bear, is this Boyden and Caracona areas. And so that's the area we're concentrating currently, and that'll be the first area to be drilled starting in mid-October. We have crews on the site there now, stripping, mapping, and doing all the kind of ground truth type work. So the pattern we're looking for and have established is kind of a classic structural pattern. So you've got these main faults going in the northwest direction, and then you have sub-faults going east-west. And that's kind of a classic, you can call it, you know, for simplicity, we're calling it kind of a Rydell, but you know, you could call it extensional or whatever, it doesn't really matter. It's a classic structural setup where you have intersecting faults, and whenever you have intersecting faults or folds, they're basically good setup areas for channeling fluids, you know, which will contain gold, hopefully. So the structural setup is there as well as the geological setup. This line was the lithoprobe line, so it's a big seismic survey that was done about 20 years ago or so. And basically it shows structure to great depth. So the question in Red Lake that people always want to know is, you know, do your structures, are they deep? Do they have roots? And the lithoprobe line actually cuts right through the center of our property. And the same pattern you see in a plan view here, so where you have the northwest faults and the east-west faults kind of intersecting, you see that same thing in the lithoprobe sections. And you know, so that's a good sign. I mean, basically what it's saying is, you know, are there structures that go to depth on your property? And the answer is yes. So that's another piece of the puzzle. This is a bit of a weird thing. Looks like you know, arteries in the human body, but basically it's edge detection in combination with magnetics and whatnot. And so all it is saying, look, there's a bunch of intersecting structures on your ground, and that jives with you know, all of the individual evidence. And so you've got basically a complex intersection of structures in the area of interest. And we go truth it on the ground, and sure enough, yeah, there's veining with visible gold going in the right directions. So we're just trying to use all available data and technology. We're also using, it's called Gold Spot, and they're kind of an AI group, so they're really high level data manipulation, and they're helping us to produce some of these maps as well. And we expect to get a lot more from them soon. They've been on the job maybe for about 6 months. So this is cartoons of the models that we're using. So basically you have folded differentiating units and the structures that kind of form as a result. Those are exactly what we're looking for. The one over on the top left is basically felsics in yellow in contact with mafics. Again, same, you know, borrowing or stealing or whatever from Great Bear. That's their model as well. So, and then the bottom are just geochemistry plots saying, yeah, we got the right rocks. We have the right rocks. Because it was always debated whether the Confederation series had the right geochemistry. And yeah, it does. Moving on to actual, you know, our first target. So we're uncovering these old trenches and trying to extend, you know, these vein showings on surface. So we're getting high grades, getting visible gold, we're getting the right rocks, and we've been now able to, like, physically on the ground trace this vein for approximately 2 kilometers in an east-west direction. And that'll be, this area will be like our first, you know, drilling area, and if we're successful, I guess you could consider it a discovery because there's just nothing of any significance, in the area. So the plan here in Red Lake is start our 10,000 meter drill program, and that's just a number. Generally, we're pretty aggressive if we can. If we have the targets, we'll do more if we can, but it's kind of success dependent. The MAG and LiDAR and those surveys are completed. We've got prospecting mapping crews on the ground. We're clearing trenches. We've got now we've honed in on the areas we want to be in, and our model is, geologically is sound and obviously proven by our neighbors to the south. I'm going to spend a bit of time on our second priority, which is Australia. It's a bit of a strange story how we even got here, but we came in fairly aggressively before the Red Lake, had heated up, before the Great Bear discovery, and basically acquired land. We saw an area play forming as a result of Novo's discoveries, and we just scratched our heads and thought, well, why? There's nobody else. I've never seen an area play without any players. So we came into it. We became the third largest landholder in the Pilbara, so our land positions are in yellow. And but we have sort of, as time's gone on, we've kind of honed in on three priorities, and these are to find source gold from Archean fault structures. So we're not chasing conglomerates or nuggets in conglomerates. We're chasing the source of the gold that they find in the overlying gravels. So Edna in the middle, Nova's doing a lot of work there, and that's more of a gravel play. So they're terming them marine terraces with good amounts of gold in the overlying gravels, and we have an extensive land position there with fault structures that we think are probably part of the feeder system to it. And then this Yandakajina in the eastern end, that's a pure fault hosted 5 kilometer long structure that has not been drill tested. And the one that excites me anyway personally is this Boudiera, which is a big 5 by 5 kilometer kind of vein array breccia on the edge of a felsic intrusion, not drilled. Very interesting stuff. The Edna area, the structure is down to the bottom. You can see that clear line of showings, and that's all old shafts and pits from the 1930s and 40s. No drilling underneath. The work that Nova's doing is in the gray part to the north of us, and that's bulk sampling the actual overlying gravels and testing them for gold content, for kind of more of a massive, surface sort of a deposit. The extent of these overlying gravels are in the brown color, and you can see how close Nova is actually working to us. I mean, basically within 2 kilometers to the north of us. But what we're primarily focused on is what we think is part of the feeder system, which is this structure running in that northeasterly direction. These are the kind of nuggets that recently have been recovered from there, and obviously they're quartz related, so this is vein type material that's been deposited at surface, and that's just our prospectors with metal detectors effectively. So I mean, there's not much doubt about where did these nuggets come from. They're definitely vein related, and they didn't travel far. The second project, the Andy, is, again, it's a nice long faulted contact unit, or between units, And again, the nuggets we're recovering there are vein related. So there's a series of shafts and pits again along that structure and no drilling. Not at least in a classic Canadian sense. So that, you know, we've got an obvious fold on the fault, and you know, lo and behold, there's a shaft there. So it's the right setup. These are the sampling that has been done. I think we've got values up to 4 or 5 ounces per ton at surface. But I mean, we're obviously getting visible gold at surface here. The vein exposure is quite impressive. You get these wide, long veins that extend for kilometers, and again, no evidence of drilling, just the odd pit and shaft that's been done by, you know, small-time individuals back, you know, 70 years ago. And the last project is this Booty, and it's basically a big vein array on the edge of a large pluton. It's a huge 5 by 5 kilometer altered area where the veins actually kind of stick out of the ground, and so you can detect the veins with LiDAR and satellite imagery. So it's, you know, the exploration is actually fairly simple, but there's been no drilling, no attempt to see, you know, get any size on it, or does it go to depth, or is it a big, massive type of a play, or is it a bunch of individual high-grade plays? That's what we're looking for. So in Australia, we're doing some surface sampling at the Friendly Creek, which is the Edgena gravel area, and the groundwork that we're doing at the other 2 projects are basically preparation for drilling. So once we're ready there, we'll be actively drilling on at least 2 out of the 3 of these sites. Officers and directors, I mean, mostly, you know, a couple of geologists and some financial people. And share price around 20 cents. It trades well. It trades a couple million shares on any given day. We've got about 3.5 million in cash currently. So we're set up well for discovery, both, I mean, primarily in Red Lake and Western Australia. Thanks for your time.
We've probably got time for about one question. One question? Here it is.
The 10,000 meter program up at Red Lake, how deep are you drilling?
Well, it's starting from scratch. So the first holes are going to be like 200 meters, not super deep. With success, we'll go deep. I mean, we're not afraid. In one of our companies in the Kirkland Lake area, Gatling, is, you know, we're drilling 1 kilometer holes without any difficulty. So, but that'll be success dependent.
Roughly the cost per meter?
All in Red, well, raw in Red Lake's, I don't know, $70 a meter. All in's probably with assaying is probably about 110.